in. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your busy days and schedule to attend Talent Collective session with ModernLoop and Ed Maldonado. Today's session is all about how ModernLoop automates and streamlines recruiting operations. For those of you that I haven't met, my name is Tammy Dane. I'm actually one of the original co-founders of Talent Collective with Natalie and Krista. And by day, I'm CEO and founder at Rabble Recruiting, which we do on-demand recruiters, HR, and ops professionals. So like all of you on today's call, I'm always trying to stay ahead of the curve and learn about new technology and new tools that we can bring to our clients. So I personally cannot wait to hear from Ed about their tool and what they can do. A few housekeeping items before we dive in. I'm sure you're all going to have tons of questions for Ed. Please put those in the chat as we go, and we'll make sure to get to all of them by the end of today's session. So please be mindful of that. And then most exciting of all, Ed and his team have decided to offer all of you a 10% discount for attending today's session. So if you're interested in ModernLoop for your team, please reach out to them, learn more, and you'll get a discount if you ultimately purchase by the end of the year, December 30th. So keep that in mind. All you have to do is mention that you were on today's session. And then last but not least, a little bit more about Talent Collective. I know we have members here today and some non-members. So if you don't know who we are, we're essentially a membership organization that exists to advance women's careers in talent acquisition. We do lots of sessions like this to help support and advance your career. So check us out in future events if you found today helpful. So without further ado, I'm turning it right over to Ed to launch in.
All righty. Thank you so much, Tammy. And again, thank you to everybody who joined us today. Just a little background on me, and then we'll get into the demo here that I have prepared for you all. So my name is Ed. I am the account executive here at ModernLoop, or one of the account executives, and been with ModernLoop for about 2.5 years. Time has flown by. And I'm just really excited to show you all our tool, the exciting features that we've added recently, and, just really get you all excited to hopefully explore more with us down the line. So today, what I have planned is to go through sort of the core functionality of ModernLoop when it comes to scheduling something more complex, like a virtual onsite. So one of the main pain points that we see from our customers is obviously scheduling is hard. That's, everybody knows that. Tammy, I'm sure know that. And especially when we're talking about scheduling multiple interviews in one day, panel interviews that have more than one person, interviewing, candidates that have to meet with our executives. And all of that tends to just take a lot of time to actually coordinate, especially when we're doing it manually. So ModernLoop is here to sort of take that off your hands, automate as much of it as possible, and be able to just skyrocket your day to be able to focus on actually meeting with candidates and winning them over. A quick little blurb about sort of the companies that we typically work with and the tech stack that we integrate with, just for you all to get a little bit of a feel around that. So we work with really any size companies. Our smallest company is about 10 people. And then we also work with huge names like Instacart, Box, Roblox. And so, massive companies and anywhere really in between. So company size doesn't really play a role in us being able to come in and, accelerate your day-to-day. What does play a role is the technology that we integrate with. Specifically, we sit on top of your ATS to be able to do everything that your ATS cannot, and essentially, accelerate your mobility when it comes to actually getting those workflows done. What we work with is, or the integrations that we have are currently Greenhouse and Lever, Ashby, and Workday. So those are the 4 ATSs that we have fully fleshed out. Obviously, we're looking to add more like iSIMs, smart recruiters, etc. So those are upcoming. And then we're getting to a world where hopefully we're going to be ATS agnostic come 2025. So we're very excited about that. And as far as any other tools that we integrate with, you definitely would want to be on a Google email or calendar workspace, as well as a Microsoft email or calendar workspace. I know most everybody's on either one. I have ran into some companies that are using, other things, but I think those are two another important points to bring up. So ATSs, Workday, Greenhouse, Ashby, and Lever, and then Google or Microsoft Workspaces in order for the tool to function properly and give you the most value. The actual demo that I'm going to do today, I'm going to do in our Greenhouse instance, but the actual functionality that you will see is going to look exactly the same for all other integrations. So I'm just going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. And again, please feel free to throw questions into the chat as I go through this, and I'll try to get to them live. If not, we will definitely try to get them answered live at the end of the webinar here. Am my screen coming across okay to you guys? You see Greenhouse, everything okay?
Yes.
Lovely. Okay, perfect. So the way I like to start these demos is essentially showing the two-way communication between your ATS and ModernLoop. So where you'll first notice ModernLoop is in this overlay here. This is designed to allow you to get 70 to 75% of the work that you're doing in ModernLoop right on top of your ATS. So you don't have to have an additional tab open, just reduce desktop chaos, essentially. I am going to close this out for just a second, just to show you sort of the stigmata of ModernLoop if you're not looking at the overlay right in the front there. So in the stages, you'll see any interview that was scheduled in ModernLoop, whether it was scheduled by you or scheduled by the candidate through our self-schedule link. All of those schedules will be fed here, and it will include the time, date, the actual meeting link, the interviews, the interviewer slated, and you could send reminders out of Greenhouse, but ModernLoop will send reminders to your candidates and to your interviewers automatically as well. So you don't have to worry about actually making that click. And then in the activity feed, you'll see that your ATS will be fed notes from ModernLoop just around activity, updated availability, whether we scheduled a debrief, really anything else that isn't a schedule per se will be fed here as a note to your ATS. And then again, going back to the overlay, this is where you'll be able to sort of start the work in ModernLoop. So in our overlay, ModernLoop will pick up the candidate's name, the job, the time zone of your candidate, the recruiter and coordinator assigned, and then the sourcer assigned as well. We do have evergreen links that you can pluck out of ModernLoop and send them out to, your connections that you have on LinkedIn or anywhere else you might be sourcing. And this will actually create a profile for that candidate in your ATS if they don't exist in it already. Once you're at the desired stage, ModernLoop will pick that up automatically. And if you switch the stage, again, ModernLoop will pick up that switch and vice versa. And once you're at that desired stage, you will see these 4 starting points. You can request a team member to schedule. You can get availability from the candidate. You can send a self-schedule link. So both of these will actually send out an email to your candidate with a token link for them to be able to go through either workflow. And then the schedule now piece is sort of the flow that we use when we're looking to schedule something a little bit more complex, that we want to be the drivers of that schedule as a recruiter, as a coordinator, whoever is essentially kind of driving here. For today's example, I'm going to use the schedule now flow to schedule a virtual onsite. So this is something a little bit more complex. It will have 4 interviews that are going back to back with a 30-minute break in between, and one of those interviews will be a panel as well. So let's go ahead and get started there. So when I click schedule now, ModernLoop will open a new tab. This is the only workflow where it will do that. The first step is ModernLoop will actually show you the availability you've gathered from the candidate. I actually haven't gotten any from my test candidate here, so I can add availability live, but whether I've received availability via the ModernLoop link or even Greenhouse, that availability will pop up in here. I'm just going to add some availability live here. I can also import availability if I've already gathered availability from a previous stage. So ModernLoop can pull that in. So I have some availability here. I'll go to the next step, which is setting up interviews. So this will actually show you the interview plan for this stage. And depending on the ATS that you're using, we should be able to either sync it, or if we cannot sync it, you can always build it out natively in ModernLoop. Each of these cards represents your interview. It has the interview name. It has the duration of the interview. It has the feedback form or interview kit link, whatever. I know that different ATSs use different names, but that link will be included here. And then you'll be able to select either the pool of interviewers that you want to select from, or you can have specific interviewers called out, as you see here down in the panel. What we can do here is say, ModernLoop, please, for this leadership and drive interview, go ahead and select the one person that's best to run this interview from this pool of 11 people that are trained. And ModernLoop will take a lot of data points into account whenever making the decision to who actually invite to the interview. So things like obviously availability, different keywords and conflicts language in people's calendars that ModernLoop can look at and be able to discern, hey, it's likely okay for us to schedule over a one-on-one versus a lunch versus, because one thing that we know is that our interviewers are not typically keeping their calendars up to date. So we do our best to be able to make decisions despite that and be able to scan calendars the same way a human would, essentially. We're not just looking for white space is essentially what we're trying to say here, because that is very, very limiting. For our product sense interview here, again, 30 minutes, here's our feedback form. And then we have actually two things happening here when actually inviting our interviewer. We have somebody being invited to run the interview from the 10 people trained. And then you can also create a sub-cohort of people in ModernLoop to go through a training or shadow and reverse shadow series. So what we're telling ModernLoop is find us a runner of the interview, and then also find us one person to go through that shadow and reverse shadow and move them through the process in order to get people to actually become trained interviewers and expand our pool of interviewers to make it easy to schedule the next time. We have a 30-minute break. We have our execution panel, which will be 2 seats. One will be either Lydia or Chris, and the second seat will be either Dwight or Michael. I can star a preferred interviewer, so this will ensure that ModernLoop does its best to have Lydia join the actual interview. But if she can't make it, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world if Chris actually comes in as a fallback. And then the final thing here to call out is the recruiter wrap-up. It's locked into position. That does mean that ModernLoop can move these interviewers around in order to accommodate for availability and just to make the schedule work. But if you do prefer for ModernLoop to actually follow a specific order, you can just lock everything into position and ModernLoop will ensure everything goes in that specific order. I can do additional things like add interviewers, add breaks, allow scheduling over multiple days, exclude specific interviewers. So this allows you to be very dynamic and make ad hoc changes as needed whenever you're scheduling this on site. If you do make a change, you can just check this box and ModernLoop will remember that change for the next time you're scheduling this. But the actual intent for here is that you only simply have to glance at this, ensure that everything looks good in the interview plan. You got your interviewers slated, and then we can click Find Schedules. What ModernLoop is going to do now is it's going to scan everybody's calendars, it's going to find time that works for everybody in the panel, which, as we know, takes time. What ModernLoop did is it actually popped out a series of schedules that we can select from in just a couple of seconds. This is kind of like a flight tracker, where the further you go down the list, the less ideal the interview schedule will be. So most of our users are going with option 1. As you can see here, ModernLoop is calling out any conflicts that we've scheduled over. In this case, looks like everybody is just a repeat interviewer because they've met with my test candidate before. But this is where you would see if we're scheduling over somebody's one-on-one, somebody's lunch, and you'd be able to just have an eye to that if you wanted to maybe shoot them over a Slack or anything like that to ensure that it's okay for us to go ahead and go with the schedule. But again, we can go ahead and select option 1, and ModernLoop will take us over to the side-by-side calendar view. This is actually my favorite feature in ModernLoop. So essentially what this is doing is it's showing us the goods. It's showing us that ModernLoop actually worked by showing us a feed of all of our interviewers' calendars. The blue events are the events that ModernLoop actually created. And then the white events are the events that are already in everybody's calendars for that day. If anybody has a private calendar, you would still be blinded and only see a busy and free block. So for those people that work with executives, it's still very safe for you to use ModernLoop. From here, I can make quick changes if I needed to. So maybe I don't want to schedule over that lunch break. I can actually just grab my candidate schedule here on the far left, and I can bring my interviewers along for the ride. This is where I can see time zone differences as well. 9 a.m. for my candidate would be 12 p.m. for Stanley and 9 a.m. for my trainee. So I can actually just move these around. ModernLoop will convert in real time. I can swap out interviewers in this screen. I can hover over my interviewers and see where they are in their interview load. So we do have limits in place that you can set for people to ensure that they're not too bogged down with interviews by saying, hey, nobody can do more than 3 interviews per day. Nobody can do more than however many interviews per week. So it allows you to also set those limits and track that with data. So once we're happy here, again, another page where you just sort of just glance at it, looks good, use this schedule. And the final step is actually the communication step. This is where we're sending out calendar invites, sending out confirmation emails, creating a Slack channel. All of this takes time to do manually. ModernLoop is going to allow us to do that in about 3 clicks here. So we'll go ahead and set up our meeting link. I'm just going to use Zoom for this example. I can use one link that people can pop in and out of, or I can set different links and select different hosts per meeting. We'll just go ahead and do one for this one, and I'll set myself as a host. ModernLoop will generate that link and then put it into all my communication. This will show the calendars that we're going to be plugging our events to. And then with one click, I'm going to actually create that Slack channel around this candidate. I can send to pre-existing Slack channels if I want to. But what this will do is it'll pull all of my interviewers in that pool. It'll pull my recruiting team and my hiring managers into this private Slack channel and provide them with a template of all the information that they need, interview details, the actual interview schedule, the relevant links, as well as we will also pull the resume from the ATS. This will also create automatic interview bots for your interviewers to please accept or decline the calendar invite and actually show up to the interview. And then whenever we're sending reminders for them to show up to the interview, it also resurfaces the resume for your interviewers. So it makes it really easy for you as a coordinator or recruiter to not have to, ping everybody to remind them, because ModernLoop will do that for you. If I continue to scroll down, I'll be able to set a coding environment. We currently integrate with 4 coding environment tools: CoderPad, Codility, CodeSignal, and HackerRank. So this is where I would be able to essentially create that environment, select the interview that I want to add it to. I'm just going to do the execution panel. It'll generate the environment and then put it into my communication automatically. At this point, I'm pretty much done with clicks. If I were to continue to scroll down, I'll be able to see all the communication going out to my parties. My email to my candidate is a template that's fully customizable. You all can have it look like however you want to. We will hyperlink everybody's LinkedIn's, have obviously all the necessary links to your candidate. You can add attachments, add imagery, and really customize as you want. Your calendar invite, in this case, will look the same as the email here. It'll just be in a box, or you can use a different template by unchecking this box. And then internal communications will allow you to set up or book rooms as well. So this will scan for available Zoom rooms. So we'll be able to book rooms through ModernLoop as well. And then you just scroll down and ensure that the calendar invites are going to the right person for your interviews. So Brittany will get the leadership and drive info. It's going to provide her with the Zoom link, the feedback form, and this will be both an email as well as the calendar invite. Lydia and Dwight will get the technical execution panel info. Our product sense information will go to Stanley and Ammon, and it will discern who is actually going to be the runner of the interview versus who's a trainee and what it means to be a trainee in this interview. And then finally, the recruiter wrap-up is just going to be me. I'll make sure that I'm getting the right info, and I can either send internal only, which will ensure that only your interviewers get this info, and then after everybody's accepted, we can send out the candidate's information, or we can click finish and send it out to everybody at one time. This will ensure that your candidate gets the information at the same time as your interviewers. Your calendar invites all go out, your emails all go out, and your Slack channel gets created. From here, I could schedule a debrief, which ModernLoop will allow me to do, but we'll go through that at a full demo if you all decide to actually take it. One thing I did want to show you is sort of where does this candidate go now that we've scheduled their interviews. So if I go to view candidate schedule, I'll be able to see my candidate's information. and I'll be able to see the schedule that has been created along with their responses from from both the candidate and my interviewers in real time. So I'll be able to see if they've declined, if they've accepted, if they haven't responded yet. ModernLoop has automation where we'll auto replace your interviewers if they decline. So you don't have to worry about, essentially jumping right on it if somebody were to decline, because ModernLoop will have replaced it as long as you have fallbacks set up there. So you can see the actual schedule here, and again, those responses. And then you can go to all my tasks. And this is where you'll be able to kind of figure out who you should attack next. So these are 6 buckets that we have created for you to be able to sort of plan out your day. It's a really good way for your coordinators to stay super organized. So these 6 buckets allow you to just see, again, what candidate is priority. So you can see canceled interviews. These are just archived. We don't need to action them. Completed are those that were successful. They happened. We don't need to action them either. Scheduled are candidates that we're waiting for the actual schedule to happen. So they'll sit here as long as we're waiting for that. And once the actual interview happens, they'll be moved to completed. Under pending, these are where your candidates will sit if we're waiting on them to provide us something, whether it's they need to provide us availability, whether they need to provide us a self-schedule. We've already sent out that request. ModernLoop will send out an email reminder to these people if they haven't gotten back to you with that request within 24 hours. And then in the action required bucket, these are sort of your main ones to attack. If the team has marked someone urgent, you would know that by seeing this here, and you can attack them first. Really, you set up whatever urgent means, but this will allow you to see that here. And then you can just go down the list and be able to see, okay, I have certain people that are ready to schedule, certain people that I need to get availability for. And it's just a really easy way for me to, be able to pipeline through my day. And then the final, which I don't have anybody here, are flagged candidates. So these are candidates that have tried to cancel their interview or reschedule. And then if an interviewer maybe declined and we couldn't find an auto replacement for them, they would sit in the flag bucket. These are sort of the top priority candidates that you need to attack in your day. And that is ModernLoop in a nutshell. Obviously, there's a ton more that we'd love to show you. But I think that if you are interested, just definitely let us know. We'll follow up today, and we can always set up an hour for a full demo where we can go through the rest of the workflows, show you all our really cool premium candidate portal, which is a essentially micro website for your candidate to have everything that they need through their interview process. And yeah, we're just really excited to hopefully be working with everybody. That's what I got. I'm going to stop sharing for a sec. Tammy, do we have any questions?
Yeah, I think I don't see any yet in the chat, but I take it that's because everyone was listening so closely. So now their wheels are probably turning with questions. So yeah, let me just do another call for questions. If you have questions, feel free to pop them into the chat. We are watching. We do have a couple of minutes, so I will give it some time and see if anything comes up. I had a question. Usually a lot of my clients ask me this, like how quickly does it take to actually implement something and get started? So that's always where my head goes. Like any context you want to give folks there that might be thinking about you guys, like how long does it usually take to go through implementation?
Very good question. So we actually have a really simple implementation process. On average, it takes about 1 week to get implemented. So it's actually very quick. What the implementation looks like is 4 sessions. And again, that week depends on your availability to complete those 4 sessions. Obviously, the availability of our customer success managers. But again, 1 week is the goal. The first session in that 4-session series is what we call your kickoff call. Then we have the integrations call, which is just a quick 15-minute sync to ensure that all the connections and integrations came in correctly. And then we can troubleshoot if there needs to be any troubleshooting. And then the final 2 sessions are 1-hour sessions where we will actually go through and sort of you demo back to your customer success manager the way I just did, but it'll be with your customers, or I'm sorry, your candidates, your jobs, everything actually live. The goal for that is by your second session to have your first candidate schedule, and then you're live. So, it's a very simple process. I would say maybe takes a couple hours on the back end. And, really, I would say the biggest lift is just getting connected with your teams that have admins to the different integrations, and then just having them go through the Zendesk steps to get those connected. Other than that, for you to actually set up is actually very, very simple.
Wow. Okay. That sounds very streamlined, which is fantastic. Oh, I see a bunch of questions actually here. Apologies, as these might have been here for a minute. Let's see. Do you see them as well, Ed, or do you want me to read them aloud?
Yeah, I was looking at the webinar chat, not at the Q&A, so that's on me.
Same. I didn't want to say that, but that's what I did too.
Elizabeth, I don't have like an email list, but I can definitely ensure to get your information, and just, keep you updated. I'm more than happy to, any time that we do at an ATS, we'll put it out into the world via LinkedIn, via marketing. You'll definitely know about it, and I'll ensure that you're kept in the loop for that. Kate, sorry if I missed this. In a confirmation email, can further links be added? For instance, a link to the interview module, question bank. So you can add whatever you want to these templates. These are kind of fully customizable. Certain things can be created as a token that can be pulled from your ATS. That one specifically, I think you would just have to plug it into the actual template before you send it out. And then, hello, is there a draft section in progress for in-progress schedules? There is not. I think if you were to sort of go through it and maybe get to the point where you're looking at the side-by-side, my best bet would be to go ahead and schedule it internal only. That way your candidate isn't getting any type of confirmations, and then let your interviewers decline, and maybe you can go back and reschedule down the line without again having to have your candidate be privy to any of the inner workings of actually getting this scheduled. Although that is a good feature request. We'll get it over to our team to do like a draft schedule.
I thought the bullhorn question was really interesting too, because my guess would be that Elizabeth is at an agency, not sure, but I know usually agencies use bullhorn, and I used it when I was sort of agency-like at a prior firm. So that's an interesting point of demand, that potentially there's, a lot of agencies, even though I know you serve primarily in-house. So very interesting.
So I think for agencies like this, probably when we're ATS agnostic is going to be probably the best solution.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll definitely keep you in the loop, Elizabeth. It's exciting.
Fantastic. And these were fantastic questions. Thank you, everyone. And Elizabeth said thank you. How nice. These were really great questions. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to attend. Ed, thank you so much for just such an informative session. I learned something. It's always nice to see what's out there, and just intrigued by the efficiency you all provide. And again, another reminder, if you're interested, please follow up with Ed and his team. They are offering that 10% discount. So never a better time to explore them than now. And check out Talent Collective. So thank you all again so much for participating. Thanks again, Ed and ModernLoop. Can't wait to see you guys again soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We'll hopefully be speaking soon.
Bye.